Hey everybody, in this video I will be creating this amazing shoe configurator. So you can click parts of the shoe, you can change color, click some other part, change the color, you can rotate and see model from different sides. We also have some small shadow under the object, so it looks pretty beautiful. So how do you create this kind of experience? Well, first of all, it starts in a 3D editing software. This time it's Blender, and I've opened my model in Blender. You could see it looks cool here, but the most important part is actually that it's already broken down to pieces. All the parts that I need to change color later on are already here. So they all are separate meshes and they have the proper names, and they have different materials which are also named properly, so I could use them later on in my code. And let's see how this workflow works for us. So first of all, I would need to export this model. So I would go to export in Blender and just save it as a GLB or GLTF. And I would get something like this entitled GLB, which I just saved, and it's 1.8 megabytes. It's not really ready for the web. I mean, GLB and GLTF are the standards de facto for 3D on the web, but this size is quite big. And to compress it, you could usually use some tools, and one of the best tools is a GLTF pipeline, and it has some ways to compress your model. So you could actually use Draco compression to compress your model. And to do that, I would need to run something like this. So I would just run GLTF pipeline, the source file, the output file, and then the compression level. 10 is the maximum for Draco compression, so you would get the maximum possible compression out of it. And then I would get the final file, which is show GLB on my desktop right now, and it would be somewhat 250 kilobytes, so like 7 times smaller. And yeah, that's because Draco is impressive. Well, that model would need to be decompressed when it loads on the browser, but still it's 7 times less than it was before. So then after I got the model, I would need to load it in the browser. And the most obvious way is to just get the GLTF loader from this 3JS library and just load it. But then you would run into some kind of problems. So I just did that in my simple 3JS boilerplate, and I did a simple console log of what I do. So this is the code. This is how it usually looks like in 3JS scenes. So you just initiate the GLTF loader and then you just load the actual model. And I just console logged what I get when I load the model. And this is the object that I get. This object is pretty complicated. You need to know those objects, and actual scene is right here. So I can go to children, 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 and this is where I get the actual scene, the actual 8 meshes, 8 parts of my shoe. Those that I just seen in the Blender. And it's not really comfortable to get this kind of JavaScript object because I need to iterate over it myself, and there should be a better way, right? And I used to use a React Free Fiber with this kind of approach, and I created a nice demo, but when I created this demo, I actually iterated those objects. So this was a GLB file, and I needed those parts because those parts were separate meshes. And I had to iterate over them and save them as a separate meshes to do the animation later. And it's not really a comfortable way to interact with the GLTF and to work with the GLTF in the JavaScript, but there's a better way, which is gltfjsx library, which helps to work with actual GLTF. So let's just try to run it on our GLB file. So I'm gonna go desktop, I'm gonna go to desktop and try to run it. I had my shoe GLB, and let's just run this gltfjsx on my shoe GLB. And what would I get in return? So I just got the shoe JavaScript. This is the actual file, and if I open it up, I would see some actual React code. So I have the dependencies code, and I have my model already broken down to the same pieces that I saw in Blender, which is really cool. And well, let's try to use this model. Let's try to load this model. To do this, I'm gonna load the basic React Free Fiber boilerplate, and let's see how it works for us. So I'm gonna load the live demo. think I'm gonna update to the latest React 3 fiber. Then I have those two nice cubes. Then I need to load my actual GLB model right here to the public folder. All good. Now I don't actually need those two boxes here. I don't need the lights. So I'm good with the empty scene. I can remove the box part. And now I can just copy paste the code from here. Well, I need to use GLTF dependency, obviously, to load my GLTF. And now I could just do the actual component. Let's try to load it. So I have the model, the shoe GLB should be the URL for me. I need to add the dependency, React 3 dry. And it's all good. So now we could add the actual shoe to the scene. To do this, I would also need the suspense component. I would just include it beforehand. So now I could do the suspense. And then include my shoe component inside. Then maybe I need to refresh this whole thing. And yeah, here we go. This is the error. It should be just null, not the none, obviously. And we just loaded the model, just like that. And because we have it already separated into those objects, I could actually delete one of them. And we're going to delete part of the shoe. How cool is that? So we actually have full control over the shoe now, over its parts, and we could work with them, we could animate them, and we could configure them. And that's what we're going to do in the next part. Let's configure the model. So now that the model is loaded into the environment, we can start to change it and configure it. So the important point, if we have some DOM objects and we have some 3D objects, there has to be something in common between them. And that something should be a state. So we need a state management. And there's nice, simple proxy-based state management called Valtio from Poimandres team, and well, let's use it. So I'm gonna import Valtio. And then let's get a state. I already wrote some parts of the state, so actually we have all those names of each of the parts of the shoe, and we just state the color of that part. And then we have the current variable, which is going to be the current chosen part of the shoe. And we have to wrap this whole thing into the proxy to use it. And then to use the state inside the component, we're just going to do the const snap equals use proxy state. So now we have the snapshot from the state, and now we have to use the actual snapshot from the state. And to use it, I have to set the material color to the state variable colors. So I'm going to write material color equals, and then I have to have something like snap and then the name. Like I called it items, so it's going to be snap items and then the name of the each material. So it's going to be laces, and then I'm going to change it to corresponding material. Let's make it full screen. Let's try to see the whole name. So it's going to be mesh. This one's going to be caps, inner, sole, stripes, and patch. And with this, I have to see that my state is actually working at the moment. So because everything is white, I probably should change one of the colors to red. And yeah, the laces are red now. So we have the state, it's working properly now. So now we have to get some other component that's going to be using the state and maybe changing the state. So first of all, I think I would like to have a way to pick parts of the mesh. So now we need to add some events to know which part of the shoe is actually mouse over it. And for this, I'm going to use the hook use state just to save the part. Now I could save into this hover to var the name of the material that I'm on at the moment. So on pointer over. I'm gonna have the event. And inside this function, I have the kind of DOM event function. So first of all, I need to stop propagation to know where exactly I'm at the moment. So I'm going to do e stop propagation, and then I have to set something to my hovered state. And this is going to be e object material name. And here we go. Inside the e object material name, we're going to have now the name of the object. And next thing, I need to have another event on pointer out. Kind of the same, but not quite. And inside of that function, I'm gonna just check if I'm still on the object or not, and then set something to null. So I'm gonna just intersections length. If it equals to 0, then this is a shorthand, I'm gonna just set it to null. So far so good. Let's continue. So now I have to do something about the clicks. So I have to do on pointer down. And inside this event, I'm gonna have to stop propagation again, and then I can actually set the current state. So I'm gonna have this function here, and inside that function I'm gonna just do the stop propagation thing, and then I need to set the state current set to the e object material name. So there we go. Now we have this object material name in our actual state. And then I have to account for the situation where I clicked and I missed. So on pointer missed. I'm gonna just set the state current to null. So now we got all the events, and now I have to just check if we actually get in that name correctly. So for that I will just create another component. Picker, I'm gonna call it. And I'm gonna use the state there, and I'm gonna just do a simple div here. Just gonna return and div class name picker, and here I'm just gonna use the current thing, snap current. Now we have this div. I can just add it to my whole component. I can't really add it inside the canvas because only 3D elements go there, so I'll have to create a wrapper. Now it's good, and now I think I'd have to have this picker name somewhere. Okay. So now I have the soul. Now each time I'm gonna click, you could see that I actually changing the variable name. So it's actually working. So all the events are correct, and now we have all the names of the materials. And what's left to do is actually change the colors of the corresponding material. And let's do that. So now that we have the snap current variable, which is the actual current material, we can actually try to change its color. And what's best to pick the color is actually a color picker. So let's add the color picker. Hex color picker from React Colorful. And then let's use it right here. So instead of just the div, I'm gonna add the color picker here. I also had some CSS. So if I wrap this one in the H1, I could get a nice big font size, which looks cool. And then I actually need to add the color picker now. So let's do that. It's going to be hex Colorpicker. I have to set class name picker on this one, so it will be positioned in a good place. So right now they are aligned and it looks beautiful. And those are just position absolute and some top left coordinates. So now we can just bin the colors from the color picker to the actual state colors. So first of all, I'm gonna do color and then snap items, snap current, and then on change I'm gonna have a callback which gonna just set the new color for the material which we got from the color picker. And for that I will just do this state items snap current equals color, and that should do the job. So let's try. Click on the sole, changing its color, and yeah, it's working. I'm clicking some other parts, trying to change the color. Yeah, it's working good. So we just got the color picker working and it's working pretty cool. One last thing that we could do, if we miss the model when we click, we could just hide the color picker. And for that I will just do the style and then display, which is gonna be dependent on the snap current, and if the snap current like exists or something, it's gonna be display block, otherwise display none. So right now if I click, yeah, I got the color picker, it's working pretty cool. And then if I click not at the model, click outside, it's not visible anymore. So it's pretty cool, we got the color picker. One last bit that we could add here, we could actually change the cursor when we just move mouse around. And for that we're going to use effect, and let's just use a function, and then inside of this thing we could use the hovered, which we introduced earlier. So we could just document body style cursor equals, like depending on hovered, it's going to be either pointer or auto. Let's see how it works. So yeah, right now when we mouse over the model, the user could actually see that we could click it. We could click it, we could change the color. Perfect. We could even go one step further. I have some SVG saved in my buffer, which would make it beautiful. So in CSS, we could actually change the cursor to some SVG image. And let's just do that. I'm gonna copy paste some part of the code. I'm gonna comment this line. So we actually have two different kind of cursors, both are SVGs, and those SVGs actually contain some variables already. So they contain the color of the hovered, and then they contain the actual name of the material that we are pointing our mouse at. So right now you can see that when we move the mouse, we could actually see the name of the material. So when we click something, when we change the color, you would actually see this color right here, because we already have the snap items hovered color here and the snap items, and all those benefits just because we already have the simple kind of state, and then we could use it inside our SVGs, inside our cursors. So it's already looking pretty beautiful, and only one last bit left. We should make this 3D look beautiful now as well, because right now it looks kind of plain, it's not really a 3D. So next, the best ways to make your 3D model look beautiful in 3D environment. So now my favorite part, making things look beautiful. Let's do that. To make things look more real and beautiful, we actually need to add some more lighting to the scene. And to simplify the process, I will add a couple of new modules from the dry library. I'm gonna add orbit controls, I'm gonna add contact shadows, I'm gonna add environment map. So first of all, I'm gonna add orbit controls. And just when we add that, we could already rotate and interact with the scene, and you could see that the object is actually 3D, but it doesn't look so beautiful and real in 3D, because we're using ambient lighting and it just lights everything at the same level, every single pixel of the model. So to make it look better, we could actually add another light, spotlight. Let's make it intensity 0.3 and then position it somewhere at the angle. I think this should look good enough. Yeah, now we have the dark side and the lighted side of the shoe, and it already looks much better. Still not quite there. We could change the colors, we could change the lace color, but it still doesn't look real. And sometimes when you get in at this point and the model looks either too bright or too dark, you should actually check if the gamma encoding is correct, and that is sRGB encoding. So depending on your mistakes in the code, it could be either too dark or too bright. Luckily for us, React Free Fiber takes care automatically of the gamma encoding, so we are good here. Another way to make this 3D model look more beautiful is actually adding environment map. So we could add another kind of lighting, like environment lighting, and for that we usually use the HDR maps, and those look like this, somewhat like this. This one is downloaded from the 3JS examples, and I could just go ahead and add this one to my code, just drag it to the public folder. I have the HDR map now. Go back to the full screen mode and then add the environment lighting. So I should just do environment, files, HDR, and it immediately gonna look much better. You could see that it's actually looking kind of real. Yeah, we have slight shadow on one of the sides. When we rotate, we actually feel this is a real 3D model. And this is already pretty cool. And the last bit that you could add is to feel it 3D, just to feel that this is a real thin floor in the air, is to add the context shadows part. So I'm going to add the context shadows, and it has a lot of properties. I just know already which ones are better, so I'm going to just put them there. So you could see that we have those context shadows just below our model, and it looks awesome and 3D now. And we could change the colors, we could rotate it, and you could feel this as a beautiful user experience for any kind of thing that you're gonna put in 3D. And was it hard? I don't think so. We're still under hundreds of lines, like 80. We're still using just 80 lines of code, and we already have full working configuration example of the beautiful looking 3D model. Isn't that awesome? It is. And well, thanks to community, thanks to the React community, and especially the React Free Fiber community and Paul Henschel, who made this video possible. I hope you learned a lot from this one. I will make a lot more short videos in future. And if you liked one, just share, like, comment, and see you in the next one.